Now that you have practiced collecting evidence and aligning that evidence to an effectiveness rubric, in order to provide feedback that feeds forward and promotes professional growth, as a principal, you are charged with creating a psychologically safe space in which others can make mistakes, learn, and grow. Let's revisit our guiding question. So far, we have talked about the importance of using shared criteria to determine levels of effectiveness and how teacher effectiveness impacts students. Now, we are going to really hone in on what it means to empower teachers to grow. John Maxwell states, "Leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others." Think about that for a moment. Empowering others means providing the tools, resources, and support others need to achieve their goals and make decisions independently. When any of us feel empowered, we're more likely to take risks, to persevere in the face of challenges, and believe in our own abilities to succeed. So when you empower teachers, then you are cultivating self-efficacy. Albert Bandura and John Hattie have decades of research that proves teachers with high levels of self-efficacy are more open to new teaching methods, set more challenging goals for themselves, exhibit a greater level of planning and organization, and direct their efforts at adjusting their teaching strategies when faced with difficulties. In fact, in Hattie's book, Visible Learning for Teachers, the evidence proves collective teacher efficacy as the #1 influence on student achievement. The most important instructional resource in the classroom is the teacher, always. We know that more now than ever, I believe. How important it is then for leaders to cultivate efficacious teachers. So we're going to dig into strategies that are psychologically proven to build self-efficacy. Thomas Guskey and Laura Link described in their book what teachers really want when it comes to feedback. Their analysis of research suggests that feedback that moves teacher forward in effectiveness is strengths-based. Now, that does not mean that compliments are forms of effective feedback, because compliments do not cause growth. Instead, we know that high expectations around our strengths does promote growth. Psychologically, our strengths are our passion areas, and we want to grow in these areas naturally, but we don't always know what that looks like or how to do it. That's why evidence-based feedback around strength areas is so valuable. Feedback that feeds forward is also data-driven, especially when the evidence is connected to the impact of teaching strategies on student learning experiences. And finally, feedback that promotes growth is goal-oriented. This is important. Once teachers have determined their professional growth goals, then they can use data or evidence to show where they are now, their current state, and then use the language of the framework to determine where they want to be, or their desired state. And then the feedback you provide is information about where they are on that trajectory. Let's zoom out for a moment and consider a system that may be in place in your school or district regarding professional growth planning, observation, and feedback. Across the nation and for decades, there's a large body of research that indicates that most evaluation systems do not promote teacher growth. However, within that research, evaluations were performed as part of compliance to state regulations and statutes. In many instances, professional growth plans were developed, observations were scheduled, and after the first observation, there was a post-observation meeting at which papers were signed and results were shared, and then that chapter was closed. Then there may be a second observation with all kinds of data collected. Then the post-observation meeting at which papers were signed and results were shared. There may or may not have been a third observation in which the same process was followed. Then, at the end of the year, the teacher was searching for a digital or hard copy of the professional growth plan that they developed at the beginning of the year and never really paid attention to after that. But now it's time to turn it in. Compliance-driven. But what if we were able to shift from compliance to commitment? What if everyone in the building created a commitment to grow? What might that look like? Well, first, a professional growth plan would be developed, and the teacher and principal would have a planning conversation about what effectiveness looks like in specific areas. They will be calibrating a shared understanding of what the teacher will be practicing and what it will look like when it's successful, what students will be doing. At the end of the planning conversation, the principal will ask the teacher, "So what kinds of evidence might be helpful for me to gather for you while I'm in your classroom? What is it you want to know?" The teacher may respond, "Well, since I'm really working toward becoming more effective in my questioning and classroom discussion techniques, maybe it would be helpful for you to script what you hear students saying so that I can have evidence of productive struggle and discourse and higher levels of thinking." So now you know what the teacher wants, what they want you to do while you're in their classroom. You have a mission, a strategy that she has requested so that she can make decisions. Feedback that helps to feed her forward. Okay, so you gather evidence during an observation and engage in a reflection conversation, not just a meeting. It's an opportunity for the teacher to think out loud, really, about the evidence she asked to receive. We will consider a protocol to guide this conversation a little later. At the close of the reflection conversation, the teacher has identified what she will practice and refine for the next observation and has requested the kinds of evidence that would be helpful. Now the conversation has actually shifted into a pre-observation conversation for next time. Instead of observations being siloed events, the observations are connected by the professional growth plan that the teacher created, and both the principal and the teacher know where she is on that growth trajectory based on the evidence that's gathered. The process continues and cycles on, perhaps even into the next school year. Now, your professional growth conversations continue throughout the year. These questions can apply to your own professional development as well. You will empower teachers, though, by guiding them through the thought process of considering, first, how might growth in specific areas of my professional practice impact student success? This pushes on self-efficacy and helps the teacher determine a clear focus and direction. Second, what are my strengths and how might I leverage my strengths to grow in this area of my practice? These questions help to promote self-awareness and self-management. And lastly, how will I continue to measure my growth as well as the impact on students? This question helps to showcase the value of intentionally collecting data along the way. Thought-provoking questions like these can impact teacher growth in amazing ways. And now that you've considered a systems approach to effective teacher growth, we will begin the next section talking about using what we know about human psychology and how we can intentionally promote or unintentionally stunt a teacher's professional growth.